Hi everybody, welcome back to Just One More Row, my little crafting vlog we got going on here. It is a super foggy morning where I'm at, and it's really early, and I am trying very hard to wake up, so please excuse me if I seem a little bit tired. So last week, we were talking about swatching, and I tried to make the case for swatching and why you should do it. This week I kind of want to talk through like the next step of my process. So after we've got all of our materials for a project and we've gone through and we were checking the swatch and making sure that, you know, our hook or needle sizes are correct. The next thing that I tend to do, this is going to seem like a silly step, but work with me for a second. I actually hand copy out the pattern. Okay, so there's a couple reasons that I do this that may not be applicable to you. One of them being is that my patterns are on the computer, and which is not as super mobile, or I'm not willing to have it be as super mobile as I am during the day. So I want a copy of those, and rather than put them through a printer, because for a long time I didn't have one, and why have a printer if you're only going to print out one thing like once a month? Didn't make any sense. I hand copy them. And this also lets me go through and, you know, again, I'm double checking for math errors. I am looking for confusing sections. I'm making sure that I understand what the pattern is asking me to do. Because especially in vintage or historic patterns, sometimes they assume, and I've talked about assumption of knowledge before, but sometimes the pattern writers assume that you know things, so they don't bother explaining them, when in truth you may not actually know them. That has happened with the Grecian blouse. Oh my gosh, it took me so long to figure out how to do the collar, because if you know what you're doing it makes more sense, but it's worded very straight. I'll get into that in a different video. So I will go through and hand copy out my pattern so that it's mobile, but you know, aside from checking for other things, leaving room for any notes, I keep my projects, or at least I attempt to keep my projects, in one crafting notebook or in one area. And let me take a moment. I wanted to talk about craft notebooks or craft journals. And I've been seeing that coming up on YouTube quite a bit. I'm a fan of craft journals. And what is a craft journal? I guess that's kind of the first question that we need to address. In my book, a craft journal is simply a thing that has a collection of papers, or really a collection of paper. It may be bound, it may be a 3-ring binder, it may just have little sleeve inserts that you can, little plastic inserts you can put papers into. But it's for you to keep a record of the items that you have made, along with any notes that you want to keep with them. And sometimes you will see people online who theirs will be very fancy, and the concept of having a craft journal can become very intimidating, because then you're like, oh well, I need the journal, and then I need the stickers, and then I need the washi tape, and then I need to be able to do the sketches, and there's going to be watercolor, and do I need calligraphy for this? And if all of that brings you happiness and joy, and that really filling out your journal is part of the entire making process, that's really awesome. And I am glad that that brings you joy. I am glad that that adds to this process of making, and keep it up, because that art, and it is art in its own way, in my ever so humble but accurate opinion, it is art. It's very inspirational. Please keep it up for as long as it brings you happiness. However, for the rest of us, such as myself, where we don't do that, let me show you what one of my journals looks like. You ready? There it is. This might actually be from the dollar store. I don't have any fancy drawing in mind. I have notes, and then I will have another piece where I keep my yarn tags. I have my pattern written out. I have places like here where I've put in where my increase and decrease rows, repetitions of pattern, things I would change. If I'm doing color work, sometimes I will add things in there. I may have a chart that I don't always hand copy some of those out, but if I have one with different colors, I may put that in. The point of it is that, I try to keep some more detailed notes about what my projects are and what I would change about them, and kind of like a mental catalog that makes sense to me of the things that I have learned and, in theory, things that I would like to pass on. Craft journals can be very useful for that. And sometimes it's just fun to look back, especially, if you, especially when you're just starting out. Like, really kind of keep it. It doesn't have to be anything like super detailed if that's not what you're interested in. It could just be, here are the patterns, along with maybe a little highlighted section for your size or whatever. But then you can look back and go, oh, well, when I first started this process, I was so intimidated by pick a technique. And here you are a year later, and you can look back and be like, I can see how much I've improved. So I'm a fan of craft journals, but the big thing is that I want to show you is that this is mine. I have another one going right now that's blue, but they're literally from the dollar store. So when you see all of those gorgeous images that are on Pinterest, or you see some of these super beautiful ones that are in the middle of some YouTube videos and stuff like that, and they do take a lot of work and they have a lot of time and effort put into them, but that's not something that you have the inclination to do, I don't want you to think or feel that precludes you from being able to have a craft journal. It can literally be this. So I just wanted to put that out there. Yeah, so I hand copy down my pattern. I make all of my notes as I'm going through. Anything else on there, like for the Grecian blouse, I've lengthened it by 5 inches. So I'm just going to sit down and do my calculations right now, pencil those in, and then, any place where I have to repeat that information, I just go ahead and do it now. I find that's super helpful for me, and I try to keep an area at the back that's open for additional notes, things like loved it, hated it, here's what the neckline actually looks like, items like that. And be sure to keep your yarn tags. That seems like kind of a silly thing, but I can tell you from experience, when you make something and you go, oh, that was this yarn that I used in a project a year ago, like, I think it would be great in a project now, but you can't remember the name of the yarn because it's been a year, it's always helpful to be able to have something to go back and reference. And I say this as a person who basically buys one type of yarn in bulk. As you can tell here, this is all basically my silk merino. I got it on sale. So I was like, why, certainly I will buy all of the colors. I did not buy all the colors, but I did buy quite a few. We'll get into my yarn buying habits a little bit later on, because they're a bit different. And again, I don't want anybody to feel that you are wrong for not doing things the way that I do things. Do things the way that works for you. Anyway, I go through and I'll write down what yarn I've used. I tend to keep the tag, and if for no other reason than if I want to remake the item, I need to know details about the yarn. Not just the name or the color, but meterage and weight and things like that. Because if I have the tag and I have the item and I have a scale, I can figure out how much yarn got used. But, it's very helpful to have that yarn tag, even though nowadays you can look them up online. So I guess that's kind of what I wanted to say about that, is copy down your pattern, make your notes, keep a journal. It will be helpful. If you don't keep a journal, that's cool. And it doesn't have to be anything like super huge. it can literally be the pattern, and then you take the yarn tag and you staple it to it. And then put like 1 out of 10 or 10 out of 10 on the top. Like that can be it. But that journal's for you. It's not for anybody else. Anyway, I think that's about all I have to say on that topic. And in other news, super quickly, the Grecian blouse. I will be doing a few more videos on it, but I will actually have a reveal, hopefully before too long. I'm at the seaming stage, so I have the garment actually made. I have to seam the sides up, weave in a little bit and trim my ends, and then I'm just popping on some borders to go around the whole thing. And I'll let you know what I've changed from the original directions, because I did make a few modifications, and there's a few things in the pattern I will not be doing, but I will get into that when we get there. So that's going. And I am in the midst of editing all the Bryophyta footage, so hopefully we will have that coming out to you soon. I just want to make sure that I've got enough of it there and edited, and that it looks good and is clear and understandable. So that is actually happening, and it's on its way. And once we have that, I have another couple patterns. I'll have one that I'm gonna do that is like another walkthrough tutorial. So I'll pop up the Bryophyta to see how you guys like it. Well, you know what? It's my channel. I want to do it. I want to do the tutorial. So anyway, take your free pattern and you're gonna like it. I'll go ahead and do another tutorial, another walkthrough for one of my original designs, and I have another vintage one. I've got a toss up between 2 vintage ones actually. One is a vintage lace shawl, and then one is a vintage like bell sleeve top down lace piece. And I'm not really sure which one I want to do first, but I don't want to have more than 2 projects going at a time, so who knows. I'll pop it up and see what happens. Until next time, I hope you guys have fun and make stuff.